Jules, has the army desensitized you? Like you can't cry. And I thought, yeah, why can't I cry? Like I have to go through something really, really harsh to cry back there before 2018. Whereas now I listen to Lana Del Rey video games and I flipping cry. You know what I mean? A bit more softer now.
Well, you're doing better than me, then. I ain't cried. God, I don't know.
You ain't cried?
Nah, maybe I just need
I'm
to
just soft.
help
I'm just soft.
themselves.
I'm soft, Chris.
I know.
Strong wind, and I get emotional.
I think sometimes I watch films and I get real close. Do you know what I mean? Like really close to it, and then it just, like you said, there is this almost this feeling inside of me that comes over that kind of pops me. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I've sat there and thought, because I actually watched you say that comment or on one of your videos, and it did make me think. Sometimes I do sort of like feel my emotions inwards, where I don't let it release. But yeah, I guess that side of me being in the army is still there.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. And he's forgiven me and I'm very grateful. His name's Smudge. He joined us mid-tour, younger than me. I was a lance corporal back then. One of my duties on a routine was Sanger rotation. So I'd write the stag list to ensure that soldiers would rotate. It was scoff time, so we were going to eat. And one of my soldiers needed to be relieved on a Sanger. So I told Smudge, I need you to get into the cookhouse, go to the front of the queue. I need you to eat as quickly as you can, then go and relieve Carl. And he goes, yeah, no worries. I leave the tent and I carry on with what I got to do. 5 minutes has passed, which, by the way, in the army, if you have to be there 5 minutes before to be on time. Okay, so if you're there 3 minutes before, you're 2 minutes late. Figure that out. That's soldier mentality. So I check my watch. I'm like, it's 5 minutes. I'm now gone into the cookhouse to think that, Smudge is finishing eating or he's at least sat down eating. He's not even in the cookhouse. I go back to the tent. He's not even there. And I realized how desensitized I was because I shouted at him very, very sternly. And it wasn't polite, It was just that, oi, fucking told you. And I literally I tell him, get into the cookhouse, say, grab your fucking food. You're going to eat it at the bottom of the Sanger so you can get up there as quick as you can. Excuse my language. So, I shout him. Bearing in mind, he's just come in. Like, he's just gone through training. He just flew out on the ground. He hasn't had any previous pre-deployment. He's just there. And he's young. Smudge was young. He gets his food, goes to the bottom of the Sanger. And I say, fucking eat it then. And he's eating it. I send him up there. I turn around. I'm a little bit trying to sort myself out. I go to my platoon sergeant. I say, look, Sarge, I just shouted at Smudge. I'm a little bit, he's doing my head in. I'm not even going to pretend like I was cold. I wasn't calm. I was cold. I was like, oh, he's fucking doing my head in. I fucking hate this kid. Why are they sending us this shit? Whatever. Down comes Carl from the Sanger, comes up to me, and he's like, Jules, I need to speak to you. I said, what's going on? He goes, that Smudge is up there. He's crying, man. He's crying on the Sanger. And I'm like, the fuck this is how desensitized I am. Cold. I'm like, for fuck's sake. I got up the Sanger, and I'm like, oi, we ain't got time for that shit here. You stop that right now. You stop that right fucking now. You ain't got time for that. And that was it. End the conversation. I said, sort yourself out. And I go back downstairs and I'm done. Then here's the worst thing. My platoon sergeant goes up to him after and says, listen, if one of my NCOs tells you to fucking do something, you fucking do it. And because this is the army. Like, not only is it a bollocking from me, told him to eat his fucking food, get on the Sanger quick. My platoon sergeant afterwards, like your platoon sergeant, you know, the way it goes, it's, you got to be you really have to fuck up to get your platoon sergeant to piss off your platoon sergeant, basically. There's like your corporals, lance corporal, all that. Yeah, he goes up to him, he shouts him, he goes, I fucking swear to God, I'll send you back, all this and that. And that was his like first experience of being shouted at. But I ain't got time for it. This is me now going back to who I was. So desensitized. We haven't got time to cry. You fucking sort yourself out. Do you know what I mean? That's it. And I think that's part of the process that we go through, because that's why we now know I'm feeling something. I'm feeling something, and I've been trained not to feel this. So I don't feel this. You can expose like war veterans to things, and in a weird way, we'd kind of shrug it off. And it's sometimes a little bit sick. Make a joke about it. His leg got blown off. Well, at least he's still got the other one.
It's kind of how you deal with it. I don't think you could have explained that any better to me. But it is right. It's like, it's kind of in a way the way it has to be in those, not in the army, but just in that environment. You kind of have to be that ruthless mindset. But like you said, when you come out of that, and then especially when you leave the army, to actually go into a normal job and for it not to be like that, how are you supposed to cope with that? Do you know what I mean? It's completely different to what you're used to.
I
You know,
think
I mean,
as well, if you weren't like that in that environment, there could have been another situation where he hadn't had that, but the situation could have been worse, and you know that actually helped him. I know that sounds crazy, but I think you have to be a certain way when you are in a war environment to get through it.
definitely.
Yeah.
And like you said, the time, you know, you haven't got time for pauses or to even process something. You've just got to react, haven't you, in those moments, and react quickly. And I think, you know, I'm sure he's forgiven you for it. So
I was going to say, yeah, I've had to ask a lot of people for forgiveness, because not only was I that soldier on tour, I was a PTI as well. So my job as the PTI sometimes weren't to be your mate. It was like, I put guys through their training, man. Like, I used to have this saying, like, I'm not the padre. Do you know what I mean? You got something that's, you know what I mean? If you got a little, you want to cry about something, go to the padre's office. I'm not the padre. What do you think this is? And I became this really horrible kind of person, but lovable. Soldiers was weird. Like a sadistic beasting. They'd be like, I love that, Jules. That was a great
tough
session.
love.
Yeah, really
That's
weird.
great.
But yeah, not the padre. And this is the also another, talking about side effects and family and stuff like that. You become this identity. Well, I personally experience, I became this identity. And then when I become civilian, it's took me now 6 years to, I've never felt like I've just revisited a place, right, of the person I was. And I actually don't like the energy that I just gave off there, like in regards to shouting at people and stuff like that. It's very, very important to know that there was a time and a place for that. Whereas I think some soldiers may struggle to transition because we don't know nothing else. Like, it takes me 6 years now to be able to, I cry, you know, I'm all right with that now. I've managed to tap into that release, but some don't want to be that person. Yeah.
I
They're
think
holding
the
on
side
to
effects as well is it's a whole ripple effect. You know, even when you're out there, your family back home, the worry, you know, the pride, the respect, there's so many elements to it. Like I didn't grow up with my father around because he was in the military, because he served, you know, pretty much all of his adult life up until he retired in the military. And he traveled the world, he went everywhere, and he was always on missions and doing things. And I, as a child, I viewed the forces quite negatively in a selfish way, because, you know, when you're a child, you're in your own little bubble mindset. It's all about you. But as a child, I viewed it, I didn't like it. I didn't like that my dad was, you know, in the Air Force. I didn't like that it took him away from the family. And I, you know, as an adult, I look at it differently, obviously, because I have more understanding as an adult, of my dad's choices and what my dad had to do and where my dad had to go. And that, you know, I think I found it quite, I was quite, it was quite personal towards my dad, that I felt like he chose to sacrifice his family, you know, to swan off around the world. That's, as a child, how I saw it. But as an adult, obviously I understand more about how he can't just quit. He can't just walk off duty and come home to the family, because there's consequences for that, you know. But as a child, I didn't understand any of that. I didn't get any of it. So yeah, it's I think the side effects aren't just with the soldier, it's with every element of your life, you know, when you're there, when you come back, your family, the effects it has on your relationships, children, you know, you miss so many moments. My dad, you know, the other thing I didn't understand or think of as a child was my dad's perspective and what he was going through whilst he was away, and how hard it was for him, mentally and physically and emotionally, how hard it was for him to be away, to miss us growing up. And I now, as an adult, look at it in a more positive way, that I learned so much about the world through my father's eyes. He was my lifelong pen pal. And when I got to travel, I got to go to visit my dad, I got to become stronger because I had to travel on my own, quite long flights to America. And I learned so much through what he was doing as I grew up. And I have so much respect for anybody that goes into the forces, and that gives their life. And when I say life, I don't necessarily mean that you die. I mean that you give your life, you give your time away from your family, watching your kids take their first steps, being there for your children's birthdays, all of the things that some people probably we take for granted. Those you give your life, and it changes you as a person. And that, I think, is something that people forget or don't acknowledge sometimes. And I certainly, as a child, didn't see it that way. It was only as I was growing up and spending time with my father when I was able to learn and respect it. So it's a ripple effect. It's
Very
huge.
powerful, Liz. That's very, very powerful. Everything you just said there. I think everyone watching right now, and I know I haven't mentioned it at all about the viewers, but guys, I think you'd agree that's a very powerful thing you just said there, Liz.
Thank you.
I was moved, because you're right. We do think about people. I thought about my mum a lot. I know that every ex-girlfriend I've had deserves the man I am now, not the man I was then. I wasn't really there. I don't have kids yet. I can't imagine what it's like for the blokes that had kids. I wasn't in the same headspace as them.
Affects, doesn't it? And the people back home, there's no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt. And it's something that gets forgotten quite a bit, actually, I think. But yeah, they definitely find it harder. I mean, I was always quite lucky, really. Like what you said, Jules. I did have a girlfriend, one of the tours who did struggle quite badly. Time, I think I didn't really think about it because you're so busy what you're doing, you don't really have time to think about how they're struggling back home, But yeah, I don't suppose I ever really thought about the blokes who had kids either. I'll tell you what I did think. This is the interesting part. They would go on the phone more often than me.
Yeah.
I would go on the phone, especially the first couple of tours. I wouldn't go on the phone a lot.
Quickly, Chris, just to explain to the viewers that we had one sat phone between like 40 people. You had to book a time slot. We had like timing, and blokes would be like, are you using the phone? You know what, mate? You go ahead, because I'm not really got anyone to call. And to be brutally honest, I don't even know if I want to talk to them. That's really selfish, because they're at the other end thinking, when's he going to call?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to speak. I don't really want to. What have I got to talk about? And I'm not being funny. I'll talk to you when I get home. I was really selfish. After my tour, I booked a 4-week holiday to Thailand after my tour. So they went 7 months without me, and then I booked another month off. I was like, I'm gone. I don't want to go back home. I'm not after the second tour. I was done, mate. But
see, that's the thing. Like the side effects. My dad being in the military cost him his marriage to my mother. My mother couldn't handle it, so and back then, because we were in America legally, she had to divorce my dad to be able to bring us back here. And she didn't want to be moving around, a lot, because of the upheaval as well for children and for families.
Yeah.
People in the army move around a lot. It's part of the job.
Yeah.
So I've got friends that had army dads, and they were here 1 minute, then they were gone to Germany, then they were elsewhere. So, and I mean, now, how we are now with Zoom and, FaceTime and technology is probably a lot. I don't know if it would be a lot different, but, thank God we had pen and paper back then, because I was always the postman's biggest fan. You know,
I'm
when
gonna
he would
say,
knock
gonna
on the
add on.
door, I was really good friends with the postman because, you know, my face would light up every time I would see a letter from my dad. And that's the thing, that's what came with age. You know, it was, everything meant so much more.
Yeah.
Everything, every moment was meaningful.
You saying
So,
that, Liz, has brought a memory back, actually. So on my first tour, we didn't get the phone that much. Actually, we had something called a Bluey, and that was pen paling. You had like pen and a blue sheet called a Bluey, and you'd write inside the Bluey and you'd fold it in a certain way so it made a letter that sealed itself, and then it just got sent home. And you could go to the post office, get Blueys to send back, and that was before
eBluey.
the phones.
It's an
Do you remember?
eBluey.
So an
eBluey?
eBluey was the text message feature. So they'd send out these like
Right.
laptops, these bulletproof laptops, bulk. You could go on and check your eBluey, which also you could have like one image attached as well. So
Yeah.
you know, it was like we were moving forward. But yeah, Liz, that you just reminded me. Yeah,
I remember a friend of mine, he was in the TA and he went to Afghan, and I remember that in one of his letters he was talking about how he was missing, he really wanted a Mars bar and certain things, and I did him a little shoebox, and so I was putting pictures in, I was putting just silly things like crisps and Mars bars and socks and just whatever, and I was trying to put some funny little things in as well, just, you know, to make him, cheer him up and stuff. And I remember he told me that he was really annoyed because he'd opened his box and he'd hid like the chocolates that I'd put in there. He'd hid, I think, because some of the guys were pinching each other's chocolates. But where he'd put it on like he'd melted it basically where he did it. So he was really annoyed with himself. But I think he was just doing that to get me to send him some more, because I did send him some more. But I'll never know.
I used to ask for minstrels because minstrels never melted. They'd
See?
They'd have that plastic coating that looked like chocolate, but yeah, they were the best ones. Yeah. You know, it's remarkable, man. On a high, let's finish this on a high. If there's one thing that I can look back on it all now and say is that I never knew I'd be that guy in my old age when, being a veteran, I'm going to be asked the question by my 5-year-old nephew right now, Elijah. He's going to, in 15 years' time, the penny will drop and he will say, Uncle CJ, you was a veteran. And I'll be in my 50s and I'll be like, you know what, Elijah? Let's have a conversation. And now me and him have got this thing that we can talk about. Like back then, Elijah, yeah, we went to war. We had this twin towers. These planes went into these towers, and it was the inside job. If you haven't seen our conspiracy video, watch that inside job, and it got everyone, the propaganda machine. And then before you know it, we had soldiers signing up to go and fight the Taliban in Afghanistan, and that's a whole nother thing. And I want to be that guy. I'm now that guy. That will happen. Well, I hope it happens. Right, nothing happens to him or me. I can show him my medal. Yeah, and you know, I might even have kids of my own. And then in 20 years' time, when the penny drops, you know, when it actually does drop, not the you was a soldier, weren't you? And they start doing what kids do, and that's be kid. You know, when they actually have this conversation, they probably watch this episode.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Lucas, I know you've been really quiet, and it's probably because you just, you know, absorbing what we're saying.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm the youngest out of us four, and I'm only 20. So this has actually been really eye-opening. But I think a good way to end is I would like to extend my thanks again, because it does mean a lot. Like, it is really interesting. And to end it, one word to describe your experience, Jules and Chris. One word.
Madness. Absolute madness.
Surreal. Right, guys, yes, let's end it on that one. So viewers, thank you so much for watching our episode. If you would like to leave us a comment, if it's touched you, felt anything throughout any of that, then let us know, you know. And yeah, look forward to that. So everyone, from me, Lucas, Liz, Chris, everyone everywhere, peace and love.
Peace
And love.
Peace and love.
Hi guys, just to add on to our video, we all just wanted to say, if you are interested in learning more about the lives of soldiers and what soldiers think about war, transitioning from civilian to soldier, then from soldier to veteran, then you need to go and check out Chris's podcast. It's called Chicken's Chat, and you can find it on all the other podcast channels like Spotify, Anchor, iPlayer, all of those ones there. And yeah, make sure you check that out. So again, from me, Lucas, Liz, and Chris, everyone everywhere, peace and love.